I never thought a homeowners association could get in the way of my livelihood. But then again, I never expected to own land that was officially recognized as state-designated open land. A few years ago, I purchased a 50-acre property on the outskirts of a growing suburban area. It bordered a small HOA subdivision, well-kept lawns, picket fences, the whole 9 yards. The HOA was notorious for nitpicking rules and maintaining community standards. But since my property was technically outside their development, I thought I was free to run my cattle as I pleased. Turns out I was only half right. My ranch was officially classified by the state as open grazing land, protected to preserve natural landscapes and support local agriculture. This meant I could legally graze my cattle there without interference. But the HOA didn't get the memo. One summer, after a particularly dry season, I brought my herd to graze on the lush fields near the edge of my property. The cows were happy, and the land was being maintained naturally. Then out of nowhere, I received a letter from the HOA demanding I stop grazing cattle immediately and threatening a fine of $5,000 if I didn't comply. The letter claimed my grazing was violating HOA aesthetic regulations and was detrimental to neighborhood property values. The HOA board had voted unanimously on the fine, insisting I remove my herd within 10 days. I was floored. First, I double-checked my property deed and the state's land use regulations. Sure enough, my land was legally designated open grazing land, protected by state statute. The HOA's rules didn't apply to agricultural activities on properties outside their official boundaries. I drafted a polite but firm letter back to the HOA explaining this, citing the exact state laws and attaching official maps showing the protected land designation. Karen, the HOA president, wasn't pleased. She replied with a defiant email claiming the HOA had community interests to protect and that I was causing a public nuisance. Knowing this wasn't going to be resolved through emails, I contacted the state's Department of Agriculture and Land Management. They immediately took interest and sent a representative to survey my property. After a thorough inspection, the official report confirmed my land was indeed classified as state-protected open grazing land. Grazing cattle was not only allowed but encouraged as part of the state's environmental conservation efforts. The HOA had no jurisdiction or authority to issue fines or stop agricultural use on my property. Armed with this report, I requested a formal meeting with the HOA board. The session was tense. Karen argued that the cattle were disrupting the community image and that neighbors had complained. I countered that the neighbors had signed a petition to keep the land open and preserve the natural way of life. Plus, I reminded the board that their bylaws did not extend to my property. In the end, the HOA had to retract the fine and publicly apologize for overstepping their bounds. They also agreed to place clear boundary markers indicating where HOA governance ended and my property rights began. The whole ordeal cost me time and patience, but it was worth it to protect my land and my way of life. Today, my cattle roam freely, and my property remains a patch of green refuge amid growing suburbs. Moral of the story? Know your land rights, because sometimes the HOA's rules don't hold up against state law,